And time now for our Entre Nous segment. And today we're discussing French pets and specifically dogs. And Solange Mougin joins me in the studio for more details on this. Solange, as of April the 15th, the rules for dog owners in this country change, but only for a short period of time.
Yeah, it's springtime, and so that means for many dog owners that it's the season of glorious long walks in parks and in forests with their pets. Except, like every year, French rules for dog owners become stricter between April 15th and June 30th, when you have to keep your dog on a leash. Now, of course, this is already standard practice in certain parks and more urban areas anyway, but this ordinance even applies if you are alone in a forest or in the middle of the countryside. It states that dogs need to be on a lay or a leash, or you actually risk a hefty fine, which can go up to 750 euros. So why is there this rule, and why during this period? Well, it has to do with the environmental impact that dogs have, particularly on nesting birds. This is a critical period for bird life, and so even if, say, your dog isn't the kind to go chasing birds, simply their presence can disrupt the nesting period. So since 1955, although it's really only been applied and enforced in recent years, there has been this rule in the French Environmental Code under Article R428-6, and some dog owners every year, well, they aren't too happy about it.
I have absolutely no scruples not having them on a leash as long as I keep my pack under control. These are not wild dogs, so there's no reason to be worried for fauna.
From the moment a dog's on a leash, they're no longer free and they don't enjoy the walk. In that case, better take them to the Champs-Élysées or in the streets of Paris.
Now, even if the law is somewhat difficult to enforce, I thought this would be a good opportunity to talk about France's relationships to dogs, how many there are, the good that they do people, but also the bad when it comes to the environment, and by extension, of course, the little souvenirs that they sometimes leave behind on the soles of our shoes.
Solange, however, let's start with the good. And one thing that you and I can say is that French people certainly love their dogs, don't they?
Yeah, they sure do. French people, on the whole, are pet lovers. I'll get into how that shows from a legislative, political standpoint in a minute. But first, the numbers. Overall, there are thought to be some 74 million domestic animals, fish included, in France. Now, there are nearly twice as many cats as dogs in the country, with, according to Le Monde, just under 15 million cats and 7.6 million dogs. However, we cannot argue that France is twice as much of a cat country as a dog one. For a poll by Centrale Canine CSA found in 2022 that 84% of French people say that they love dogs. Over 1 in 3 households has one. And an IFOP poll, they found that 70% of dog owners put a present under the Christmas tree for them during the holidays. From a legal standpoint, which to a degree reflects the societal shifts of how people think about dogs, there have been 2 major pieces of legislation relatively recently. In 2014, a law was passed where dogs were no longer defined as a thing or as a bien meuble, but rather as a living being gifted with sensibilities. And then in 2021, another law was passed to curb the abuse and abandonment of animals, with last year another push to bring those numbers down. They are quite high. In the tens of thousands. So there is abuse, but there's also a lot of pet owners who are just gaga about their tutus, as well as the increasing use of comfort animals, say, for example, at abuse trials, but also in hospices and hospitals.
And we certainly see that when we see French people taking their dogs to the restaurant, something you don't see in other parts of the world. So when it does come to the French language, Solange, there are also some strong linguistic traditions when it comes to their pet dogs.
Yeah, I did not know this before researching this segment, but in France, since 1926, there has been a tradition of naming purebred dogs with a specific letter, depending on the year that they're born. This year, for example, it's the letter A, so there might be a lot of Anaïses and Auréliens. Next year it'll be B's, and it goes through the alphabet, even though in the 1970s certain letters were dropped like K, Q, W, X, Y, and Z. This system, which is now also in other countries as well, it was set up to help identify the age of certain purebred dogs. France has a long history of breeding certain kinds of dogs, including the poodle, which is France's national dog, although Le Caniche's origin story, it actually starts in Germany. Nonetheless, yes, the French language loves dogs. So I've thought I'd give you a 101 on some terms and expressions. Of course, a dog is a chien, a dog, or une chienne. A puppy is called a chiot. And then there are plenty of slang terms. Un toutou, un kleps, un clébard, un cabot, un molasse, with toutou being the most endearing, and kleps or clébard, which is also sometimes spelled with a K, coming from the Arabic. As for expressions, there are lots of them, but I've chosen just a few. There's nom d'un chien, or shoot, damn it. It's a bit of vieillot, or a bit old school as an expletive. There's avoir un mal de chien, or have a heck of a time, which is similar to being malade comme un chien, or being sick as a dog. Then there's avoir du chien, or being spunky, or having a lot of character. There's having a hard life, avoir un vie de chien. And then, of course, there's the weather. Il fait un temps de chien, or it's bad weather, kind of like it's raining cats and dogs in English. And finally, there's one that I particularly like because it is a magical time of day, and that's entre chien et loup, or twilight, that moment between dawn and dusk where there's so little light that it's hard to tell if the animal in front of you is either a wolf or a dog.
That's really fascinating, Solange. And as you were speaking earlier, obviously French laws, bless them, they're everywhere, and they work hard to keep dogs on a leash in spring in order, as you pointed out, to protect nesting birds. But what impact do dogs really have on the environment?
Well, as much as many of us have a soft spot for them, it's not good when it comes to the environment. Worldwide, there are thought to be 1 billion domesticated dogs, or 5 times the number of cats. And dogs, like cats, well, they are predators. They love to chase animals and birds, and even if they don't catch them, they can exhaust them or disrupt their nesting period.
Dogs can unfortunately cause damage to wildlife, particularly young birds that are born in the spring and are particularly vulnerable if their mothers are disturbed. Or if the dogs have a predatory instinct which can make them sniff out or even eat the young wild animals.
Then, of course, there is the hunting aspect. In Tasmania, for example, pet dogs are believed to have decimated local penguin colonies. Even bigger animals sometimes see them as a threat. In the United States, studies show that deer are more alert even when they see a human with a dog on a leash than they are if a person is alone. There's the environmental impact of pet food. Millions of chickens and cows are bred as pet food. There's actually the same quantity of carbon emissions from all of this pet food as the entire nation of the Philippines. And of course, that food has to go somewhere too.
Now, here in France, many of us, and I'm sure even tourists, have had their fair share of encounters with their côte de chien.
Yeah, even if the superstition goes that if you step on it with your left foot, it brings luck, it is a pain for everyone. And France has a long history and is known for having a problem with dog poo being left in the streets. An average dog deposits 200 grams of feces per day and 400 milliliters of urine. That is a ton in a 13-year lifespan of potentially disease-carrying feces, not to mention the nitrogen and other chemicals that pollute land and waterways. Now, there have been numerous schemes here in France to stop all of this or to have people pick up their dog poo. From Jacques Chirac, who made pooper scoopers, the motorcycles, the motocrotte, famous. They were actually done away with for the most part because they aren't cost-effective, to fines, which exist today, to DNA testing, which maybe in the future a few towns have tried it, who knows, to public shaming. And here, there is no question. Being a good parent to your dog or being a good master, picking up a tutu, picking up after tutu is the way to go. So you and others, well, they don't have to say the M word.
Indeed. We will not say that word. Thank you so much, Solange.